Yeah,
is he dialed in yet, or?
No. Bass drum?
Here we are before the show. So you have to set everything up. In this case, all the equipment was provided by the venue. So all the drums, all the amplifiers, microphones. Now we brought our own guitars, our own keyboards, but for me, all the drums, all the cymbals, everything was provided. So it's important to do this sound check when you're using somebody else's equipment. I mean, it's important when you're using your own, but especially when you're using somebody else's, just to make sure that everything works and that you're familiar with it, at least enough to play the show. For the most part, drums are drums, and you can set them up the way that you want. But, there's always little things that, sometimes you'll hear a rattle, or, sometimes you'll have to adjust how high the seat is, or, just little things. So the sound check is the time to do that. So if you're talking to me, you gotta wave your arms.
I'll yell. Snare.
You got quite a ring in there.
Yeah.
The snare drum was ringing too much, and this is the venue's snare drum, so I'm surprised that they they gave me a snare drum that they didn't like the sound of. I like it when it rings like that. That's just a personal preference. It's like anything with music, it's all personal preference. There is no good and there is no bad. You can talk about skill. You can definitely measure somebody's proficiency with their instrument. But as far as the way it sounds and the music that you play, it's 100% opinion. So, so they gave me their own snare drum that they didn't like the sound of. And it didn't, a lot of snare drums have mufflers on the inside that you can kind of crank and dial in the amount of muffling that you want, but this one didn't. So I ended up putting duct tape on the snare drum head to kind of muffle it. It's an old trick. Usually I do it on the floor tom. I think in this case the floor tom already had some, or maybe I put some on. I don't remember, but so duct tape on the snare drum.
There we go.
That's way better. Yeah. Snare? Hi-hat. Sorry. You want any of that in your monitor? What? You want any of that in your monitor? Yeah. How's that? Good. Good? Okay. Tom 1.
Mute everybody else.
Yeah. That good? Is that alright? Yeah. Okay. Next one down.
Hit the other one. Doug, hit the other one. Okay, and go back.
In this case, the drums, the tuning was a little bit off. So fortunately, the singer, Christian, he noticed that the two rack toms, which were the ones that are on the bass drum, they were really drastic differences in pitch, between the two. So typically you want, kind of a smooth sounding doom 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 sort of thing, and these were just way off. So I tuned down the highest one a little bit.
There you go. That's a little better.
All right, Tom too?
Yeah.
I noticed the floor tom wasn't quite the way I like it, so I tuned the floor tom.
Okay. Let's go with can you get the bass then, please?
This thing.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, that's key.
Actually, let me.
Do Sympathy. Yeah, Sympathy's the one. Well, we need that coming through the, like, all
Yeah.
the monitors. Especially on this song.
Yeah.
Play it. It's on. It's on. Well, I can hear a lot better. It's always great to have spares.
Yep.
Yeah, this
You
thing
came to
sounds
the right place.
Yeah, this thing sounds good.
The sound check hopefully is where you iron out all the kinks. Especially, like I said, when you're dealing with other people's equipment. So we had an issue with the bass monitor, so we had to get that fixed.
See how that sounds.
I don't even know, honestly, how this one works.
Okay.
And it might.
It's got a smaller bass speaker. It sounds better.
Yeah, that's
Check, check. 1, 2, 1. Check. Thank you, Ben.
Okay, what are we doing? Again, same one? Okay. We ready? Yep.
So we did the sound check with an American band by Grand Funk Railroad, which didn't actually make the set list, but I think we were keeping it as an extra song if we needed to fill out some more time, which we ended up not doing. So we sound checked with a song that we didn't actually play in our set, which is not typically what you want to do. You want to play songs that you're going to play live, but it's okay. And so the other thing about sound check is you check the levels of the stage volume versus the levels of the house, what's known as the house volume. In this case, it's a live streaming, so the house volume is what's going, the feed going to the audience out there on the internet. So there's the stage volume is different. And the reason for that is if all you had was the house volume, you would hear a lot of echo. You hear that the speakers are all pointed outwards towards the audience and not towards the band. So you'll hear tons of echo and it's hard to play to echo. So you have a stage volume, and in the old days you would have actual amplifiers on the stage to give you the stage volume. Sometimes they're called monitors, amplifiers, whatever. In this case, that's what they provided. So I had a monitor to the left of me that gave me the volume of all the other instruments. which I actually like. I enjoy that. But the point is, during sound check, you want to make sure that you can hear everything okay. So, like, for example, if you can't hear the singer, you tell the sound guy, please turn up the singer in my monitor. So then you can hear the vocalist. Because a lot of times you have cues in a song. You're waiting for the vocalist to do something, and so you need to hear those cues. And if you can't hear all the other instruments, you miss cues like that, and basically your music suffers because you're playing off the other musicians, and you need to hear them. It sounds obvious, but it doesn't happen automatically. You have to make it happen. And everybody has a personal preference. They might want a little bit more bass or a little bit less bass, a little bit more guitar, whatever. So you get, each person typically gets their own what's called a stage mix or their monitor mix. And so you spend time doing that during the sound check. And then once you think you have it all set, you go through a song or two and everybody checks their own, they check their instruments, they check their own monitor mix. The sound guy will check all of his equipment, make sure it's working. The lighting person will, test the lighting. In this case, also we had the streaming guy. So everybody checks all their technical stuff. So when it comes time to do the show, you're fairly confident that the equipment is going to work the way you want it to.
Hey Ben, can I get the guitar up a little bit over here? It's like I can't hear him at all now for some reason. So, play something, Jack. Yeah, there you go. Let's try that. Could we try, I really want to make sure that...
In the drums, and I'll go into this in some detail later, the one and only electronic drum that I use it for a few things, but I hit a drum pad and it triggers a sample of the congas and percussion for the Rolling Stones' Sympathy for the Devil. So we don't actually play that stuff live currently. We play a recording of it, straight from the album, and I trigger it by hitting this drum pad, so it starts and stops when we want it to. So I can control it by hitting this drum pad. This was the first time I had used this particular electronic setup. I'd used one in the past and it worked okay, but this setup is better. But we had never used it, so fortunately, Bill said, hey, let's do this song during sound check. And I'm grateful that he thought of that, because sure enough, we did have an issue with it.
Why did that kill?
Oh, you hit it by accident. No,
I would hit the pad and it started like it's supposed to. But then I would hit a cymbal or a snare drum or something else and it would stop the music, So that's known as a false triggering or a misfire, There's many different terms for it. But whenever something happens that you didn't intend it's, misfire, basically. So, I had to do some troubleshooting. I spent an awful lot of time and never did get to the bottom of it. We did put in a workaround. Fortunately, the sound person came up with a great plan B, and I'm forever grateful for that. It's kind of funny. I had avoided electronic drums for the longest time. I mean, they came out in, technically the 70s, but I wasn't even playing drums, but they've been around for as long as I've been a drummer. And I've always avoided them just because I've seen the headaches. I've seen the technical problems that all the other electric musicians face. And I'm just like, man, I don't need that. I really don't. I've seen people get so frustrated. Like, on show day or even just in rehearsal, just things aren't working. And you know, you're there to play music. You're not there to troubleshoot technical stuff. I mean, I've just seen so much frustration that I didn't want that for myself. So I had avoided electric drums for the longest time. But recently with doing my musical theater gigs, you know, they prefer electronic drums so they can control the volume better. You know, when you're in a pit orchestra, you know, the volume of the drums just overpowers everybody on stage. And if the pit is actually in the auditorium, then it's too loud for the audience too. So nobody likes the really loud drums. And as a drummer, it's no fun to play really soft, and the drums don't sound good when they're played soft. And you know, it's no fun for anybody. So electronic drums is a great way to get around all those problems. They can control the volume. You can play them really hard and make them sound like you're playing them hard, and yet they're not overpowering everybody in the whole place. So I had to jump into the electronic drum world, and I found out that I liked it. But you know, you still have to deal with these issues, and so issues I came across during this show. All right, so I have come to my my drum set here at home to try to reproduce this stupid problem that drove me absolutely freaking nuts that night. We ended up using a workaround because I could never get the EAD to function the way I needed it to. So fortunately, the sound guy had a great idea. He ended up putting the he found the same sample on YouTube or something like that, and he just had it queued up on his iPhone. And his iPhone was wired directly into the board. And when it came time, I cued him. I like raised my stick high up in the air. That was the cue that we had. And he just pushed play on the damn thing. Well enough, but what happened was because it was YouTube, it went buffering or some stupid crap, and so there was a little delay, and I had to kind of fill it in with hi-hat and toms and whatever. But you know, the guys in the band, I could tell were just like, what's going on? But you know, I just played the hi-hat, so you know, what the hell. Anyway, so going back to reproducing my problem, so I have, this is my scene that I have set up. It's Sympathy of the Devil. It's set to trigger a wave. Everything was fine. I did finally, there was an issue with velocity. Like if you hit the pad, you know, at various levels, it would play the wave back at various levels. And I wasn't aware of that, but I did find in the settings here where to set the velocity to the highest. So no matter how hard or soft you hit the pad, plays the damn wave loud, which is what we wanted. You know, I mean, it's good that the flexibility is there. It's just, you know, I didn't know where the setting is, but now I kind of do. Don't make me go through this, but because I've only got this one thing prepared for this video. So the issue was I would hit the pad. Here's my pad, an XP80. And it starts the wave. You know, that's exactly what we want. And then I hit the pad again and it would stop it. That's all I needed it to do. And it's great. It's working fine. But then we because we hadn't actually ever rehearsed this in the studio. So fortunately, Bill said, hey, let's go through this during sound check. And thank goodness he did that. Otherwise, we would have had problems during the song. I'm sure it would have turned out fine. We would have been missing some congas, you know. it would have been there at the beginning and then it would have cut out. So, you know, it wouldn't have been great, but it wouldn't have been the end of the world either. So back to the problem. So the issue is I would hit the pad and then I would like start hitting the snare drum. When me and Bill came in, I'd hit the snare and it would stop it. And as you can see, it's not, you know, sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. But that night it was pretty reliable, and sometimes I would hit just a cymbal even. It didn't happen there, but there, I hit another tom and it would cut it out. So we had an issue. I'm thinking, oh crap. So there's a few things going through my head. The first being that we had never used this pad. This was new. I had been using a Roland PD7 pad in rehearsals, but like I said, we had never actually done this specific song during rehearsals, that I can recall anyway. So I broke one of my cardinal rules, which is never to try something first. Never to try something for the first time in a production environment. So it's going to my computer training days. But it applies to music too, especially when you're dealing with electronics. Try everything before your show. In this case, I took the chance because this pad is better, and I say better than the PD7, meaning better suited. It's designed to be played with the EAD10. There's a pad setting in there for it, whereas there is no Roland pad settings in there. And the other thing is, you know, I knew this thing was going to be videoed, and I didn't want to be playing a pad from 1997, you know, there in 2020. So it's kind of a personal pride thing. I just wanted to have modern equipment. I figured, hey, you know, I knew there was some element of risk, but I thought it was going to be pretty low. So that was the first thing. The second thing is I bought this pad used or refurbished. I mean, it was like new. And I had tried it, you know, I played it here. I knew that it worked, but again, not for this very specific function. We'd never actually tried it for this, specifically playing a wave in a loop. You know, it works fine for like cowbells and tambourines and stuff. It was working great. But for playing in a loop, we had never tried it. So I thought the night of the show, should I bring the PD7 with me just in case? Nah, what could possibly go wrong? So I left it at home. And of course, I'm kicking myself while I'm troubleshooting this after sound check. I spent, I think, like 2 hours trying to get this to work. But here in my home, I tried everything with the PD7, the same one that I'd used, and I had the same problem. So I felt vindicated there. At least it wasn't a pad issue. So that means it's something with the module. So I had gone through every setting in this thing, and I had changed all the values to the maximum and the minimum, and I could not fix it. We tried moving the pad from here, like this side of the kit, way over to, you know, by the floor tom, and you know, that did not help. So I had the manual was of no use, but there's a resource manual, which is like the advanced manual, and I had it on my phone, and I'm looking through it, and I looked at everything, so I thought, and I tried every setting, so I thought, but you know, it was kind of a high stress situation. I'm at a club, the lighting sucks, there's music playing, and you know, when you're trying to focus, having any sort of music, it's one of those things, I don't know that, you know, science has figured out why, but I know it to be true, and others also, that if you need to focus, you need to turn off the damn music. It's like when you're driving and you're getting lost and you need to find where you're going, turn off the damn music and you can focus better. So, I did not have that opportunity. I'm at a club. They play music. That's what they do. So here at home, I don't have any distractions. I use the same resource manual, and I don't know if I just missed it before, but I found the setting, and it's here in the menu in the trigger. I'm trying to focus here on this. I guess it's kind of dark in here. It's in trigger, pad type, and well, I just spoiler alert. But when you click pad type, this is one thing about the EAD10 that's kind of confusing. So if you look below the pad type, it looks like there's no other settings. But you have to look over here, and you see a scroll bar. So you can scroll down, and maybe that arrow's there means there's something else to scroll to. So I tried these things, none of this helped. And here, this was what it turned out to be, min level. So again, when I'm at the club, I could swear that I had tried all of these things. And basically, I here at home, I tried the minimum and maximum values of everything, figuring if I'm going to troubleshoot it at all, I just go to the extremes, and then find the right issue, and then I can, tweak it to my liking. So it turns out that this was the setting, and let's see if I can reproduce that again. So I'll start it, and now if I hit the snare drum, hopefully it won't turn off. And I'm hitting it as hard as I can, basically. So that's it. And I found, after a little bit of testing here at home, I found that I can turn it down to like 60, possibly even lower, but 60 seems like a good number. So let me bang the hell out of this snare drum again. So that's doing the job. So there it is, min level. The other thing I found with other troubleshooting is that the distance, let me turn this off. That's another issue I couldn't really figure out. Like, sometimes it's supposed to turn it off, but sometimes it would like start it twice. So I have to look into that. I'm thinking that's a bug, but anyway, I found out that the actual physical distance of the sound module to all the other pads made a difference too. So when I mounted it up here, I noticed that even when I had min level down at 1, I really had to bang the hell out of the snare drum to reproduce the error. So I tried, the night of the show, we tried moving the pad, but we didn't try moving the sound module. So it is the actual drums. It's like some concussion wave of the drum that is reaching the module and causing a trigger. So if you have an EAD10 and you can mount it far away, which is kind of tough because you like to be able to see it. Now I use a foot pedal to switch between all the different scenes, but still I like to glance over and make sure that I've switched and the scene has switched. But if you can't move it over, there's your setting, min level. So that's it. I've got my equipment ready for the next show and the next problem.